The maple syrup season has started up again in Quebec, and producers across the province like Bob Schobel of Ridgewald Farms are firing up their evaporators. For him, maple syrup production is a family tradition.
I've been on the farm all my life. It's my mother's side of the family, and it's been here. Mitchell, my son, is fifth generation now, so been a day or two.
But the maple syrup farming industry has changed drastically over the past half-century. Hugh Maynard is an agriculture policy specialist.
Yeah, so 30, 40 years ago, most maple syrup production was carried out by farmers, dairy farmers. It was a sideline. It wasn't a main activity. They did it in the spring. It was sort of a ritual, a heritage of Quebec, very much, as we well know. And they would consume most of the produce, and whatever, if it was a good year, they would put it on the market and they would sell it. It was a sort of an intermittent market.
These changes have made it hard for small, local producers like Bob to keep up with expensive new technology.
On a good day, I have 1,100 taps on right now. The other day I made 36 gallons of syrup in the one day. Guys with ROs and that stuff now, they can make that in an hour. The old-fashioned way, it takes a lot longer to do it.
A new report commissioned by the Quebec Ministry of Agriculture is causing controversy within the industry. Maynard says the Gagne report is a reaction to Quebec losing ground in the world maple syrup market.
Quebec produce around 70 to 75% of the world's maple syrup, so it's quite a big share, and that's been slipping over the last few years. So the concern was that the quota system that's been put in place over the last approximately 10 years was harming the industry, that we were losing market share to the Americans, and so the proposition from this commission was to partially remove the quota system and make other regulatory changes from what's in place now.
The quota system was put in place in 2004 by the Federation of Quebec Maple Syrup Producers. It was intended to protect producers from the unpredictable market. Now farmers are divided on whether scrapping it is the right approach.
Well, the pros of the quota system is that it allows farmers, maple syrup producers, to earn a decent price for their product, because it forces all the buyers to go to a single desk, as they call it, and so it forces them to compete amongst themselves rather than the farmers competing amongst themselves for the rights to have their produce purchased. And so the consequence of that is that the Maple Syrup Producers Federation can set the price, and maple syrup producers in general have benefited quite well from this system, which is particularly important because prior to it being in place, the market was a chaos, and many maple syrup producers were losing money. The downside, of course, is regulation, and everybody, if you take the analogy of the taxi industry with Uber, it's exactly the same parallel, where you have a regulated market where the prices are set, you have quotas, right? People have to pay for the license to drive a taxi, and along comes Uber and wants to undo all that. So it's exactly the same parallel in the maple syrup industry.
Despite the recent policy changes and the ups and downs of the weather, Bob is staying optimistic about the maple syrup season.
Best syrup there is. So far, better than expected. The warm temperature has affected it some. The color is a little darker than usual, but if the season continues, we should be okay.
Ariane Concordia News, Montreal.